My parents begged me to come home for the holidays after a 5-hour flight. They left me to DOGSIT while they went on a luxury vacation without me. I didn't argue, I just smiled. But when they came back and saw this, they started screaming. Let's rewind. It was early December when I got the first text, "You coming home this year?" followed by, "It would mean a lot to your dad and me." And then the one that got me, "The holidays aren't the same without you." I stared at that one for a long time. It was the kind of message I'd wanted to receive for years, a sentence I'd rehearsed here, ring in my head so many times that when it actually showed up in my inbox, I didn't even question it. Iced. He smiled. Work had been brutal. My team was understaffed. My sleep schedule had morphed into a series of naps taken between Zoom meetings. But I told myself, they asked for you, they miss you, and so I did the thing I rarely do. I took time off. It took a solid week of negotiating with my manager, shifting deadlines and promising I'd check in just in case. But I cleared 5 whole days. I bought a flight. I even packed a few small gifts. I thought maybe we'd play board games, make fun of cheesy holiday movies, actually talk. The flight was long and uncomfortable. My seatmate ate something that smelled like feet dipped in hot cheese, but I didn't care. I was buzzing with a kind of stupid hope that doesn't die easy, the kind that survives years of being ignored and still shows up with a bow on its head. I stepped out of the Uber with a smile on my face and my suitcase in hand. That's when I saw the trunk of my dad's car open and 3 large suitcases has been shoved inside. For a second, I thought maybe they were going to surprise me. Maybe we were going somewhere together. Maybe this was part of the plan. But then my mom spotted me and waved cheerfully like I wasn't watching my holiday fantasy melt in real time. "There she is," she called, "just in time." I blinked. "Just in time for what?" "The cruise," she said, as if it was obvious we didn't want to leave Bentley alone. She gestured toward the dog, who was peeking at me from behind the front door. "I thought I'd misheard you going on a cruise. Just a quick getaway," my dad added, slamming the trunk shut. "We've had a stressful year." Josh grinned at me from the passenger seat. "You'll be fine here. You love quiet. This is perfect for you." He said it like I was a rice cooker or a robot, something designed specifically to function in silence. I stood there with my suitcase still in hand as my mom handed me a folded list titled Bentley's holiday routine. It included things like rub his ears clockwise, not counterclockwise, and lavender diffuser on at 8 p.m. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and smiled the way I always do when I'm trying not to shatter. They hugged me briefly, already distracted. My mom reminded me not to let Bentley cheese. My dad asked if I could pick up a delivery that was scheduled for Wednesday. Then they got in the car and drove away. No one asked how my flight was. No one invited me to come with them. No one even asked if I'd eaten. And just like that, I was alone in a house I pay for with a dog I technically adopted but haven't lived with in years because my little brother wanted him, and I couldn't say no. I locked the door. Bentley padded over and sat at my feet, tail wagging uncertainly. "Hi buddy." I will spurred, kneeling to pet him. He smelled like old blankets and wet socks. His fur was rough, and he looked thinner than I remembered. His water bowl was empty. His nails were too long, and something inside me twisted. I felt his water took out the food they'd left. Sat down on the couch and stared at the flickering Christmas lights like they might start rearranging themselves into an apology. But nothing happened. The house stayed silent. The heat clicked on. Bentley curled into a ball. I'd been so sure this year would be different, that maybe they were finally ready to see me not just as the person who sends money when the car breaks down or the kitchen remodel runs over budget, but as their daughter, their sister. I was wrong. I felt ridiculous forever believing it, forever thinking that if I worked hard enough, or became successful enough, or made myself useful enough, they'd eventually see me as someone worth staying home for. Instead, they saw me as a convenient solution. Free dog care and built-in house security. Their own little robot arriving right on time. I tried to shake it off. I'd spent my whole life doing that, making excuses for them, telling myself it wasn't personal, that I just wasn't easy to love, that maybe if I changed a little more. I rubbed my temples and tried not to cry. The air smelled like cinnamon and candle wax. I was surrounded by deck operations I didn't put up in a house. They didn't thank me for paying off babysitting a dog. They stopped caring for the second the novelty wore off. And the worst part, I still wanted them to call me. I still wanted them to turn the car around and say, "We're sorry, we didn't realize we love you, please come with us." But they wouldn't. They never did. Bentley let out a soft sigh in his sleep. I stared at him for a long moment, then walked to the kitchen and opened my laptop. I didn't know what I was looking for, not really. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to keep pretending. This was normal as it wasn't, and maybe, just maybe, I was done waiting for someone else to notice. Bentley curled up next to me on the couch, pressing his weight against my leg like he thought it might help anchor me to something. His fur was married in patches, and he smelled like old shoes and sadness, but I didn't mind. He was the only one who hadn't left. I kept staring at the empty living room like I was still waiting for someone to pop out and yell, "Sir Price, we didn't actually abandon you. We were just kidding. We do love you." No one did. I don't know why it hit so hard. Maybe because I convinced myself I mattered more than I did, that if I just kept giving, eventually they'd see me as more than the girl who paid for things, maybe as someone they wanted around. I always thought if I could just fix whatever was wrong with me, they'd let me in. That's what I assumed growing up, that there must be something broken about me, some missing piece that made people shrug instead of hug. I was the weird one, the quiet one, the girl who preferred math puzzles to makeup, who color-coded her books and made Excel spreadsheets for fun. I remember my mom once saying, half joking, "You weren't the easiest child to bond with." I was 10 when my brothers teased me. Everyone said it was just their way of showing love. When I cried, they told me I was too sensitive, so I stopped crying. That didn't help either. I remembered one birthday, I think I was 8, when they threw me a party. I was so excited. My brothers even said they'd invited the neighbor kids. I wore my best dress and brought out cupcakes I made myself. But when I got to the yard, there were no people, just a piece of paper taped to the fence covered in numbers and math problems. "Your kind of party," Josh had laughed. Then they all ran off to the real party at someone else's house. I sat on the porch steps for hours, or even solved the equations. I thought maybe that was the key. Maybe if I solved them all, they come back. They didn't. By high school, I thought I could blend in better. I tried to laugh at the right times. I borrowed clothes from Mandy even though they didn't feel like mine. I joined clubs I did care about and practiced smiling in the mirror so my expressions wouldn't look weird. People still called me intense, distant, kind of robotic. Mandy once told me, "You're not on pretty, you just don't know how to act like a real girl." I tried to learn, and still I was the one people forgot to invite, the one who got thank you tax, the only after Veman requests, the one who heard over and over, "You just really hard to get close to." When I got into an Ivy League school, my parents said, "We're proud of you, honey, but just don't let it go to your head." They didn't come to graduation. They said plane tickets were too expensive. I believed them until I saw 4 photos from Josh's birthday trip to Cabo the same week. I told myself they just connected more with him, that it wasn't personal, that if I could just be more something, they'd start seeing me. He got my degree. I got the job. I sent money whenever they asked. I paid the mortgage on the house they lived in. I even helped Mandy through her divorce. I thought maybe generosity could substitute for closeness. Maybe if I poured enough into them, I'd eventually fill the gap. But there's no amount of giving that can make people love you if they've decided not to. Sitting on that couch with Bentley snoring into my hip, I finally felt it. Not anger, not even betrayal, just a slow dial real as nation. I was a placeholder in their lives, financial plan in human form. And the fact that I ever thought I could be more made me feel like the dumbest person on earth. I looked around at the mess they'd left behind: food on the counters, dirty dishes, half-packed boxes, like they couldn't be bothered to make the place presentable even when I was coming home for the first time in a year, because to them I wasn't really a guest, or was the help, the responsible one, the built-in safety net. Even Bentley looked thinner than I remembered. His nails were too long and his water bowl smelled weird. When I crouched down to scratch behind his ears, he whined a little, like he'd been waiting weeks for someone to actually see him. I rested my head against the wall. Maybe I really was the problem. Maybe I'm hard to love, to quiet, to strange, to clinical. I replayed every conversation I ever had with my family, trying to pinpoint the moment I made myself invisible. Maybe I never should have left. Maybe 6 Zest made me arrogant. Maybe I stopped trying, or maybe they never tried at all. I used to think boundaries were a selfish thing, that saying no was something only cruel people did, that love meant sacrifice, especially when it hurt. But now I just felt small and tired. And done. Bentley let out a soft groan as I gave him a treat I found in the pantry and poured fresh water into his bowl. Then I walked to the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I didn't know what I was doing exactly, just that something inside me had finally shifted, not snapped, not exploded, just shifted. I typed what to do of family lives. In your house rent-free. I stared at the search results for a long time. I didn't know if I was really going to go through with anything. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel clever. I just felt done. Let them say I was cold, detached, overreacting. Let them say whatever they wanted. They already had. Bentley nudged his nose under my hand. I stroked his head gently, then whispered, if there's something wrong with me, at least I'm finally doing something about it. I hit print on one of the articles. The paper slid out of the tray slowly, like it wasn't sure either. They came back on a Sunday night. I was still there. My boss allowed me to work remotely because of a family emergency. I knew the exact minute the car pulled into the driveway because Bentley shut up from his dog bed and let out a bark that was more alarmed than excited. I stood in the hallway, frozen, heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. He was like hearing an alarm go off in a place that used to feel safe. Car door slammed, voices, loud, familiar, careless. I told you should be fine, my mom said, laughing. She loves quiet time. She probably reorganized the pantry for fun. Josh added, more laughter. I didn't move. I do just watch through the peephole. Mandy was the first to notice. She giggled. The handle pulled, then pulled again. I imagined her brows nodding in confusion, the slow boil of entitlement rising. Why is the door locked? Dad tried his key. Nothing. Just stepped up next and tried to shoulder it. Bentley barked to go. Then louder this time, and I picked him up before he could get more worked up. My arms trembled slightly, not from fear, exactly, something else, something quieter, final. Then came the knocking. Lucy, open up. The lock jammed. I sat on the couch with Bentley gently stroking his ears. Another knock, then harder, then fists pounding. We see. What the hell, did you change the lock? I didn't answer. I already had 3 days after they left. I changed the lock, not out of anger, though I had plenty of that, but out of practicality. The house was a mess. Bentley had been neglected. There were signs of damage in multiple rooms, doors left unlocked, overflowing trash. As the legal owner of the home, I had every right to secure it. I consulted a lawyer before I did anything, and now they were back expecting everything to still revolve around them. Mandy screamed, you can't do that. This is our house. That's when the floodgates opened. Lucy, open this damn door right now. We trusted you with a dog in the house, and you don't get to just lock us out like some kind of. This isn't just yours. Sit for was and always had been. When I bought this place 6 years ago, it was supposed to be temporary, a fallback. I paid the mortgage while they lived here, just until they got back on their feet, and somehow they never left. Somehow the house became theirs in their minds, and I became some benevolent landlord who owed them silence and steady income. I stood up slowly. My hands were trembling, but not like before. It wasn't fear, it was adrenaline, my body catching up to my decision. I walked to the front door, but didn't open it. I just spoke through the closed frame. I secured the property, I said, voice steady. You left it in poor condition. Bentley was neglected. The house was unlocked. I spoke with a lawyer. Silence. Then Mandy, shrill and indignant, you're insane. You can't just change the lock because you feel like it. I didn't feel like it, I replied. I'm the legal owner, and I did what was necessary to protect my home. Josh started yelling something about suing me. Dad's voice rose in a way I hadn't heard since I was 15 and dared to suggest we skip church for my math competition. You ungrateful brat, after everything we've done for you. Oh, I laughed. I didn't mean to. Just came out this sharp, breathless sound that startled even me. Everything you've done for me. I repeated. You mean the free babysitting, the financial black hole? Or was it the birthday party where you left me alone with math problems? As a joke, more yelling. I walked away. Yeah, I called my attorney to let her know they'd shown up. She said not to open the door and to let them know all communication should go through her office. Now then, Josh went around the side and tried to pry open the kitchen window. Mandy screamed at me. From the porch, my mom stood in the yard crying loudly enough for the neighbors to hear my dad pace like a man who couldn't believe the waitress had just handed him the bill. I called the police when the officers arrived. I handed them the deed photos of the condition the house was left in and the vet report from Bentley's checkup. The officers were calm, professional. One of them turned to my dad. "Sir, she owns a house. There's no lease agreement. She has every legal right to secure the property. You're just going to let her do this to us?" My mom cried. "She hasn't done anything illegal," the officer said. For once, no one had my family's back. No one twisted the story to make me the villain. There were no pitying looks at jokes at my expense, just facts. Just boundaries, just me being hurt. The police advised them to leave and let any disputes go through formal legal channels. My family stood there stunned, furious, humiliated. But in the end they left. I watched from the window as their car backed out of the driveway. Mandy turned and flipped me off from the passenger seat. Josh shouted something I couldn't hear. My mom didn't look back, and for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel like the one left behind. Bentley climbed into my lap, awkwardly, his weight grounding me. "I think we're going to be okay," I whispered. I'd always thought that maybe if I just fixed myself, they'd accept me, that if I tried hard enough, smile old enough, gave enough, they'd see me. But it wasn't me who needed fixing. Maybe being the quiet one didn't make me broken. Maybe it made me mine. I didn't cry, thought I might. But there were no tears left, just a deep pulsing sense of something else, relief, power, peace. I wasn't angry anymore. We're not even hurt, just done, and sometimes that's more powerful than rage. I thought that would be the end of it, but people like my family don't lose quietly, not when entitlement has been their love language for decades. 3 days after they left, I started receiving emails, first from my sister, then my mom, and finally my dad. The tone shifted from confusion to rage to desperate manipulation. "You've embarrassed us. We don't understand why you're doing this. You're being dramatic, Lucy. This isn't like you." And finally, the cherry on top for Mandy, "You seriously need help?" I didn't respond. I forwarded everything to my attorney. Then came the escalation. They tried to break in again, this time in the middle of the night. As zooming I'd be gone, the motion sensor light snapped on and the security camera caught everything. Josh and my dad with a crowbar trying to force the back door. The police came again. This time my attorney pressed charges. They tried to say the house was theirs, that I had stolen it, lied to them that they had some verbal agreement, but there were no documents, no leases, no proof, just their voices getting louder as their arguments got thinner than they did. The one thing I should have seen coming, they sued me, was laughable. Really, a poorly constructed civil suit claiming I'd evicted them illegally, that I'd stolen the dog, that I was suffering from some kind of mental breakdown and needed to be removed from financial control of the property. I was apparently, in their words, a danger to the family's well-being. It should have rattled me maybe a year ago. It would have shattered me. But now I was done flinching. I showed up to the first hearing in a gray pantsuit, hair pulled back, expression unreadable. My lawyer handled most of it, but when I was asked to speak, I did calmly. I laid out the timeline, the house deed, the payment records, the screenshots of the text asking for money, the photos of Bentley's condition, that report, the breaking footage, the emails. He was boring, methodical, airtight. When the job much asked them for evidence of their claims, they had nothing but vague statements and dramatic declarations about family betrayal. The case was dismissed. They left the courthouse humiliated. Mandy hissed something at me on the way out. I didn't hear it. I wasn't listening anymore. You think that would be the end? But no, they found my tenant. The new tenant. Rachel texted me one night, "Your sister showed up here screaming, said she was getting her house back. I had to call the cops. I offered to terminate her lease if she wanted out. She refused. Honestly, can have like the drama. Plus you weren't kidding. This place is gone. Gorgeous." I increased the security and got a restraining order. It was granted. The judge this time didn't even hesitate. For the first time in years, the law was working for me, not against me, not as some background feature of a world where I was always overruled or ignored. I was being hurt, and slowly it started to settle in. I hadn't lost my family. I'd lost people who never really valued me, people who treated me like a resource, not a person, and I was done being harvested. Fast forward 6 months later, Bentley now has his own corner in my New York apartment, complete with a soft rug, a window view, and 3 different plush toys. He only pretends not to like the house is fully rented. Rachel renewed her lease. I raised the rent slightly, and she didn't blink. I finally have savings, real savings. I moved out of the tiny studio and into a 1-bedroom. I even bought a plant. It's still alive, the miracle. My therapist, as I should be proud that cutting off your family doesn't mean you're broken, means you're finally putting your own oxygen mask on first. I told her I felt guilty for feeling so relieved. She smiled and said, "That's Kale.